welcome back. And let me just ask, what do you think of that show? Thumbs up? I see from some of you. I hope you really enjoyed what the board was talking about. I think that from our perspective, he was giving you quite some good insights to both what is organizations about, how do you work with organizations and organizational development, and also maybe seen from this, the very, very narrow perspective of this course, the STAR model, how can you actually use that, how can you understand it and put it into practice in an organization. I will come back to something on the STAR model a little later in this very short presentation, but first of all, I would like to say, and now Georgia, I need my slides. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. A lot of you have written on the yellow and red cards, and it has been really valuable for us to hear what you are saying, and I can see that a lot of you is appreciating both the talk shows, the live stream, the Temo platform, and the course in general, and of course we're very, very happy with that. Also you appreciate the TAs and so on, which we're also very happy about, but of course you have also written something on the red notes, and just to come back on that, I know one of the main issues is the group rooms in building 450, and we know they are not really the best, but it is, despite we have a big campus, the best that we have here at the university, and I know that you are a lot of people in these rooms, but we have extra rooms over in the building, so you can use some of the others, and the TAs know which ones that you can go into, so that if you think air is getting a little too thick, or that the noise is a little too heavy on you, you can resign to those rooms and then come back for the feedback. So that's more of a practical issue, because we think it's, even though they're not the best, it's most optimal that we are all placed in the same building in the afternoon. And also some of you have made some comments on that it can be a little difficult to hear during the feedback sessions and so on, and I would just say speak out loud in the classes. Don't wait to fill it in on the feedback cards that you can't hear, but well, say it out loud that people should speak up, or how this feedback event could be organized if you have any ideas on how to improve it. Please speak up, don't wait, and we should read it afterwards of course we would like to read it, but also just tell it to your TAs or ask, can we do this differently? Could the ones presenting speak up? There's no need for you to just write it on the cards, as one point. Then we have some comments on the course form. Some of you are almost asking, praying for, let's have some traditional lectures. We cannot really meet that request, I would say. One thing is a practical issue, that you are so many people, and also because we actually think that you learn more and that you learn better by doing it this way. To us, there's not so much sense that we are repeating or sort of laying out what is written in the books for you, because you can do that yourself. What is actually very important in this course is that you learn to apply the models, that you learn what is practice about, and that you engage in these issues, which is also why we're very happy that a lot of you were asking questions for the talk show just before, because that means that you're reflecting, that you're thinking about what is being said, and by that you're also learning a lot. And also we think that when we have these people coming from the industry telling you about how are things working out there, how can the things that we try to learn you here in Temo actually be put into practice, how is it used also in practice, is the way that you learn more, instead of us telling you what is in the book. So that is actually the more pedagogical reason for why we have made it this way. So, but you have to work as well. We cannot read and speak out the books for you. You have to do some work as well. Yeah, and we think you learn better that way. Then some of you had a concern about the ethics of us being here in the library, because by having the talk shows here, we would disturb the people trying to study here. Actually, it's part of the strategy of the library to open up. So I know they are very happy that we are having our talk shows here. So there is actually no ethical concerns in that way. This is not a silent library where you just sit and study still. This is actually made for group work and for interacting and doing presentations like we have here. And another point that we would consider for the coming talk shows, that will then be for the next semester, is to have a different hour for these talk shows, to maybe start a little later. Some of you think that it is a long time, going from 11:30 until 1 o'clock, until you start the next part of the course. We thought it would be nice, and you would have time for preparing, maybe catch up a little on what was said in the talk show, do some reading and so forth, but others think it's actually a waste of time and you cannot really use it for a lot. So we're considering that, but we might ask you before to see if that's just a couple of students thinking that it's not a very good time to start at 10 o'clock, that it should be maybe 10:30 instead, and then you will have it as one big slot. But we'll come back to that to ask if that's more of a general opinion or if it's just a couple of students thinking like that. That was a little on the feedback. Please fill out the cards again, because it's very nice for us to know how it fits you. Then a little on the STAR model and what Bort was talking about. This is another of the essential models, you could say, in this course, and I have a couple of highlights just to emphasize for you. It consists of these 5 parts: the strategy, structure, processes, reward system, and people practices. And when you do organizational development, or when you do organizational change, in this theory, it's about reconfiguring this as a system. So you have to see this as a whole. These are not 5 single elements, and then what is this and this and this, but it's actually 5 elements that should support each other. And one important point about this model is that they should be aligned. So you have the different elements, but what is actually really important in this model is the line between the 5 elements. How does the structure, the processes, the people practices, and the reward system support the strategy that the organization or the goals that the organization is pursuing? Do we have the right structure? Do we have the processes in place to actually fulfill the goals that we are pursuing? Okay? So not just these 5 single elements, but actually how do they support each other? Think alignment. And another important point that I think Bort was also talking about is that very often when we talk about organizations, we talk about the picture of the organization or the structure. And then we rearrange the structure, and now we have done a lot of things. No, not entirely. The structure is only one element, as you see here. It could be rather necessary to do some changes in this area, but it's not the only one. And especially if you do so, you should think about the processes that we also should develop in order to support a new structure. And when we talk about structure, that's actually reflecting how do we divide the work in the organization, which kind of functions do we have, or which departments, and they will very often get into a specialization of work, and somehow we need to coordinate between either functions, teams, or departments, and so on. And we need processes for doing that. Okay? For instance, processes. Processes can also be how do we ensure high quality in the organization and in our products. It can also be processes for handling complaints or handling failures and so forth in the organization. The reward system, that's actually also a very important element. This is how, actually the thoughts about how do we motivate people in the organization. How do we motivate you when you are going to be future employees or managers? How are you motivated to pursue the goals that the organization is setting out? Is it only by money, as Bort was talking about, or do you also have another scheme, as he was explaining they have in Novo Nordisk, for motivating you either by being promoted, or it could be with having other tasks, or whatever it could be. And people practices, that's about the competencies. When you do, for instance, about the competencies and capabilities in the organization, when you are pursuing a new strategy, you're developing a new business area, creating new products, do you actually have the competencies in the organization to fulfill this goal? Do people know about, do we know what we need to do to get there or not? Or do we need some other competencies in the organization? Think about just the soft performance case that you were working with a couple of, that was last week. How much do they know about management? I think many of you had a feeling that, okay, this organization lacks competencies within that area. So if they are to pursue goals where they actually improve both their own organization but also other organizations, maybe they need some knowledge in that area. They need skills. Okay? Yeah, that's the overall presentation about the STAR model. And if you have any questions or things that you would like to ask, comment on this one, I think this would be a good moment. You will get lots of chances to work with it, both in the afternoon and the coming afternoons. Then another issue also from the feedback is how to work with cases. I know that this is a new thing for many of you. So how do we do? And now you have tried it out. We would say maybe a little trial by error. I hope you have read our note to you on case analysis, because it has some good information on how to get started in this area. But still, I sense that there is some doubts for you, or amongst some of you. First of all, you have these overall models that we are working with in the course, the business model canvas that you've been introduced to, and now we start out with this on the STAR model. And then you have this to understand the organization, our 3 layers, this very simple model of the organization. And you could take this as just some sort of an initial framework for understanding what is an organization about. It's about how do we configure the structure, processes, reward system, and the people practices to set out the goals that we're pursuing. That should, if we're lucky, fit the business environment, and we have a business model to actually sort of capture what is our framework for making money in this organization. Here we have set it out as the STAR model belonging to the strategic level. Don't take it very literally, and that the business model is connected to the tactical level. This is mainly to say that in a company you have one strategy, but you could have several business models. If it's a very big company, you could have several business models for the different products or services that you're producing, but you cannot have several strategies for the company. Yeah, and then you have the overall level. You have this one for the case analysis. What is the problem? Who is the key problem owner? Try to look for that. What are the causes? If you heard what Bort was talking about, he was also talking about doing a diagnosis of the organization. That's actually looking into what is the problem. And you could also say that you might not get to the problem as the first step. Doing a diagnosis can also be to look through several issues, and then you sort of put it all together and and conclude then what is the problem. Causes, as he was also talking about, what is the root cause for the problem that we're looking for. And as you might also have heard, he was saying, well, our managers, they tend to go for the solution first, but we would like them to actually analyze the problem before, so that they know more about it. That's the same we're asking you. Don't just jump to the solution. Look carefully into what is the problem, look carefully into what is the causes, and then you look for a solution. Okay? You want to add something, Søren?
I'll just wait.
You just wait, okay. And then what is actually a problem? Already now you have had 2 different cases, and you might say that in the first one, what was actually the problem? You had to search creatively, I sensed, for some of you, whereas in the soft performance you were working with last week, it was more obvious what is actually the problem in this case. They weren't making any money. The business was actually about to go down, and then they had a lot of other problems. But in the first case, it was more of this one. Is there a need in this organization for doing something differently? Should we go for new opportunities? So when you think about what is a problem, it could also be like a question. What should we actually work with in this case? So you could, when you are to identify the problem, see if there's something not working in the case. That was obvious last week with soft performance. You could also go and see, are there any misalignments? If you take, for instance, the STAR model, say, are there any misalignments in this organization? Do we have an organization that is not fit for the strategy that is set out? That could also be sort of a hanger for you to put your problem in. Or it could be some misfits between what is the organization doing or the products that they are having today and what the market is asking for. So this would be a misfit between the organization, the business model, and the environment, the business environment. So try to look for it in these areas and see if these factors could sort of open up and see some problems for you. And of course, this is not the only things that you could look for to find problems. There could be others, but just to give you some inspiration on where to find it. Okay? Is this posing any comments or questions? Yeah. I think you, yeah.
Is it ever a valid solution to just say, keep it as it is?
To say?
Just stay, status quo.
I wouldn't say that would never ever be a valid solution, but I would say we kind of end the conversation rather fast then, or we could, if we only talk about the examination, if that's what you're thinking about, then we might say, but what if this happens? So, and I think in most of the cases, just as in reality, things are dynamic around you. So it is about responding ongoing to different events, either within the organization or outside. So just saying, well, I think you could end up by saying, no, I think we should actually just stick to the situation that we have today, but coming to that solution would actually go around a lot of different, both analysis and different scenarios. If you think about one of the first models within decision making, it's important that you also generate alternatives in order to actually come up with a specific decision. And so taking this decision of maintaining status quo would go through actually generating different alternatives. That would be my answer, actually, yeah.
I would like to add that, in my opinion, it's not, because you can always improve things, and if you think like that, you will end up being outcompeted. Yes? Could we go back to Søren? I would like to say something about the models just to help you getting on with the things. I would like to have the other one with the two models. Yes, thank you. So what is it all about? How can we define organizational performance? You know that now, yes?
Efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, and can we see that here? This is actually about efficiency, and this is actually about effectiveness, yes? And whenever you look into a problem, you can use these models actually to map where do we have the problem, yes? If you look into a case, you might have some problems that are actually addressing the structure, the processes, the people practice, and so on. And if so, you know it's about the efficiency. If it's something about that we're not really creating value, yes? Or something about how we handle our customers, it would be about the effectiveness. And often you will find some problems here and there, and then you have to fix it first, yes? And as we have discussed before, who cares if you're very efficient if you're doing something very bad? So of course you should pursue the right goals and then make sure you use your resources right. So in order just to keep it simple, you have these two models, yes? And then you also understand that organizational performance is always about effectiveness versus efficiency. And then you're actually, I think you're on the track. So if you think of it like that, it's not that complicated. Yeah, you see what I mean? And how about the business models? I would like to ask you some questions to see how much you actually understand right now. I think it's awesome because you can only make if you are making a business, you can only do it in 3 ways. What are the 3 ways of doing business? Might be a combination, but you only have 3 ways of doing business. How? No idea? You can solve some problem for people. That's one way of doing business. That's consultancy, that's the lawyers, that's a hospital. Yeah, that's one way. Then you can make some products, and then you have to do innovation all the time, and that would be something like you're actually manufacturing something. We call that product innovation. So now we have one way that's actually problem solving. Another way is to innovate new products and actually make a manufacturing. And then you have the last way, and that's if you have a network to manage. We call it infrastructure management. You see that a lot with the IT business. You know, the value actually corresponds to how many users you have. If you have a network to manage, you would like to have as many users as possible. It goes like that also for a lot of transportation. If you think of actually running, if you think of the National Railroad, they would also like to have as many customers as possible within a network, yes. And even if you look also into banking, you would also like to have as many customers as possible. So you can manage a network, yes. You can innovate some products, and then you can produce them, or you can solve problems for people. And I would like to challenge you to find another business model, because I would say you cannot find one who are not either a combination or one of these 3. And isn't that amazing? When you think of it, you can only do business in 3 ways. So you just have to get into this stuff. It's not that complicated. You see? You just have to think this way. Any questions about this?
It sounds like you're talking about the unbundled patent, and it says, according to what I understand, that you can only choose one of them, and it's not a good idea to combine them. You said you can combine them.
Yeah, often you see in some of the very large corporations it's combined, but of course if you can't, if you can separate, as it's good, because otherwise what would be your key activities? And then you have a problem within your organization, yes? You can say that if you do all three things, you would have a lot of key activities, but what are then the most important? But you have a few companies like IBM who actually do all of it. And for some years ago you had also within Novo, they were actually doing all of it, but then they split it out. Now they have Novo Nordisk, who are actually producing something and innovating, yes? So they would be a...
I can't remember infrastructure something. Oh, it's,
a product innovation company, yes? Yeah. And then they have NNIT, which were actually the IT company within Novo Nordisk. What would that be?
I have no idea. It sounds like the customer.
Infrastructure management, yes. And then they also have a company called NNE Pharmaplan. And what are they doing? They are helping companies and Novo Nordisk to actually establish factories. So it's more or less management consulting or engineering, yes? And that would be...
that customer management.
It's actually problem solving. So you see, they have actually said, no, we cannot have all these competences within one organization. We need to split up. That's it.
I think that also depends on the structure of the company, because you divide in several units when you start to think that you have several business. So you can concentrate your business better in each product that you have. So that's why I think you can have infrastructure, manufacturing and problem solving in the same company, because then your structure will be with different units.
Exactly, and you can actually do that in that way like IBM is doing, yes? But it's very difficult to manage. So one thing to do, actually, when I used to be a management consultant, I always asked, when I came to the first meeting, what are actually your key activities? And sometimes they were actually listing 100 key activities, and then I say, that's impossible. You cannot be good as you cannot be equally good at 100 things. I don't believe it. What are actually your key activity? And then you have to think of it and say, okay, I'm not world class in all 100 things. Perhaps I'm only world class in 3 things, and then you should focus. You see? So that's also a way to solve your problems inside. That's it.
I think just a comment to this one is that you can actually, even though you have these many key activities and you should focus on a few of them, the rest is not unnecessary. These are also, they are just the foundation for new companies. So you can actually put this into a separate organization, capitalize on it, find new customers for them instead of having it inside. So, because as we were also talking about last time when we presented these 3 different business models, they work on different terms. They also engage different people. They engage different mindsets. So if you are a product producing company, you might not value the problem solving or the infrastructure management as much. So these business areas will not really flourish the way that they could if they were separate.
So we see that all the time.
Yeah. Okay?
Yes.
And that's actually how you see that these companies proliferate out of bigger companies.
And I have one more little tip I would like to give you, which I think is quite useful. Over here you have something called the key activities, yes? Which we have just been talking about. So if you actually translate the strategy into key activities, you can actually make a quite nice little link between the 2 models. because all this have to support your key activities, yes? You have to have the right structure, you have to have the right processes, you have to have the right the reward system and the right people in order to perform your key activities. And then you have actually a link between the two models, which I think is very nice. So that's it.
I have a question regarding the STAR model. What is the planning aspect? Is it inside the strategy? Because strategy and planning is different. So where is the planning aspect? Is it inside the strategy aspect?
Now you're thinking of the 4 functions of management? No. But I would first like to address the 4 functions of management, because you have to do that everywhere, yes? If you now, for instance, are a middle manager who are actually responsible for, you might be responsible for the recruiting the right people. Then you have your job, that's very specific, yes? But you still have to plan, organize, and you still have to lead and control within your unit, yes? So it's something that all managers are supposed to do all the time. But of course, if you have a strategy, it should also be explained in a plan, yes? And one way to do it is actually to make a business model. And as you said, Sara, you might have a lot of business models within one company, but you never have more than one strategy.
So continuing on how to work with cases, I think now it's going to be very concrete. How can you get started? Some of you have actually asked me that. So one thing could be to describe the situation in the case that you're reading. And some of the tools that Søren was just mentioning is very useful for doing that. You can use the efficiency and effectiveness. How would you describe the situation in the company using that one? How would you if you use the 4 functions of management, then how would you then describe the situation in the company? And now, if you think about what is a problem, you are already now looking for what are some of the misfits, what are some of the misalignments that we have in this organization. Where could there be some of these things that are not working? Okay? So just in your own words, try to describe what is the situation. Get an overview with using these different models. It can also be just try to do a quick STAR model analysis or write up the business model, and you will see where are things not really fitting here. Okay? Just to get started. And then you probably will see some problems. You'll go into the causes and solutions, of course, and then just a thing that we have been talking about a lot of times. Remember that this is not a linear process. You will have to do iterations. You might do these things to get an overview, get back, and then you will see what is actually the problem. And also, when you write it up as a presentation, in the end, that might take a much longer time than just doing it straightforward. That you will do a lot of different activities to do your analysis. If you think about the milk fuss case that you were doing the first time, and also thinking about one of our first talk shows where we had Christian Salling from A.T. Kearney talking about doing case analysis, one way to get an overview, not only of what is the causes, but also what are the possibilities, you could look into the milk fuss case like this. Oh, can you actually see from the chairs here? Okay, I hope. So you have milk fuss here. This is the obvious way to go. Wine and dairy, because we have this French guy. And then you could, say either in one company, in 2 separate companies. You could also have here, should we actually go into wine, dairy, maybe something else? Should we just stick to the dairy business in a local? That's actually what you were asking. Could we just stick to status quo or not? Or should we go global? So you could end up with this solution. But I would say to make a fair analysis, you would have to go through all this to actually show, well, this is then the best solution for this company. Another question would then be, should it be the French farmer who should be our guy in this new business adventure, or somebody else? What would be the argument for choosing either or? So this is just a way of doing this whole map of different solutions. So you don't just go for the first and most obvious one, but that you actually can demonstrate for yourself what would be the argumentation for going through the different ones. Okay? Let me just see if there is anything else here to... No, and this is just, to emphasize a little on what is our thought about this course, that we are not doing traditional lectures, speaking out what is written in the book, because you all read. So instead, we want to emphasize the exercises, the e-lectures, talk shows, our extra materials on articles and videos on the platform. And I think that one we're going to stick to. Yeah, that's all for today. Next time we have a very exciting talk show as well with one of, I would say, the leading Danish consultants within change management. And she's called Henriette Dibert from the consultancy company Implement. So you can look forward to that one. Okay, thank you.